Hey, Conley. Thanks for joining this podcast with me. It's awesome to have you here. We worked in Verizon in past. I know you, very nice human being. You helped me a lot in my transformation in US. So it's awesome to have you here in this channel.
Hey GK, it's really great, man, to be here with you. I love your channel, you know that. So it's an honor just to get to share some thoughts about DevOps and what I've been thinking about and talking to customers about lately.
Thanks, Conley. So what have you been doing all these days?
Yeah, I mean, so since you and I were working together, um, it was a great start for my career. Verizon. I basically started in the professional tech world for those who don't know me in 2014. And so uh, during my time at Verizon, I worked up to an engineering manager of DevOps. So my team was responsible for improving our speed of software delivery while not sacrificing on quality. And we were trying to bring that to the organization as a whole, not just on our own team, but influencing the rest of the organization. So that meant bringing in, standardization, building a community of engineers that could share ideas and reuse those, as well as being able to show outcomes of our investment in the public cloud and DevOps. So that was kind of, where we left off, you and me, GK. And after moving into management pretty early in my career, I learned a ton of valuable lessons and was able to go through processes of hiring and budgeting, as well as being able to build other people's careers and get them promoted even, which is like the greatest honor and really the best outcome you can have as a manager, even if it's, hey, they're moving on and up from my own team. But being in such a growing and innovating field as DevOps and cloud is, I knew I needed to continue building my own technical acumen,
Mhm.
as well as business acumen. So anyways, I made the jump. Really, this led me to joining the premier DevSecOps company in the world, at least in my opinion, GitLab. Those who aren't sure what GitLab is, it's a complete DevSecOps platform that allows developer operations and security to perform their job in one single application rather than like a disjointed tool ecosystem of point tools, as most people who kind of piece together DevOps have done in the past. And so like the role that I'm in now is really a consulting type role. It's called customer success manager, and I was drawn to it because it allows me to continue the type of transformational work that I was doing at Verizon, but with many different types of companies. So it kind of broadens my purview. This is why I was drawn to it, is because I could see not just how one company did it, because that was really the only company I knew at the time in the tech stack, but rather I can see how, 10 or 15, Fortune 100 companies are going about this transformation. And so for me, it was kind of a way of learning very quickly. We even call it GitLab years because you can be here for a year and a half like me, but in terms of work experience, it feels much closer to 5 years because of the rate our product we release every single month. So you always have to be fresh on the product, but also just the pace at which our company grew over just a year and a half.
Yeah, that's amazing. In fact, like you said, you've been pretty much doing these things at Verizon, helping the internal customers, but now you are helping huge customers outside, like different diversity of customers or different diverse customers. I think that's an amazing story. And like you said, you went pretty early into the management, and I'm sure you're a perfect management material, knowing you personally. So I think it's going awesome for you. Um,
Yeah, I think that, eventually it's one of those things to grow your ability to, persuade and influence an industry or a company is management allows you to do that, to kind of scale your own
yeah.
abilities. So, I do see that at some point, like you've been both IC manager, IC back to management. So, similar track.
So as you've seen the trend, right, in your previous company also, we have seen that lots of different tools to do the same process, CI/CD, and then consolidation of tools back and forth. This is happening across the board, right? Why do you think that now industry is moving towards towards the left, not the left in the terms of political view, but left in the terms of starting where you're writing the code from the Git side. What are the advantages of like moving away from like Jenkins, to make it more simpler to people who are watching this, moving away from Jenkins or Travis CI into a one GitHub platform or GitLab platform and do everything, whole CI/CD processes?
Yeah, it's definitely like the trend that we're seeing. When CI/CD first came along, like Jenkins was really your only option. So
Yeah.
most every enterprise that I deal with have either started their migration or completed their migration off of Jenkins. And it's really to do with the architecture, right? It was born in like 2004, and it was kind of brought to the open source mainstream in 2011. A lot's happened since 2011. I mean, cloud took off, having more microservice architecture took off. And so too is like the complexity of a tool like Jenkins over time. It was great at first because it was extensible. You had plugins for everything. If you wanted to have a build kick off after you commit your first code, or you would create a plugin and use the SCM, the source code management plugin, or the GitLab plugin. But now,
Right.
when GitLab kind of took our own stab at it in 2016, we were able to take a lot of the learnings that we saw weren't working with this architecture around, a plugin, a sprawl of plugins that a lot of them are vulnerable or not compatible version to version. And so, we even took stock of our own at my last company, where we had over 200 plugins. And then you also have them for every line of business. So you end up with all these different plugin sprawl, and that was leading to huge maintenance burdens as well as downtime even. So that type of complexity is why a lot of people are coming to GitLab CI. Because instead of installing plugins to gain features, GitLab uses YAML-based configuration files to define pipeline as code. So it's versioned, it's simple to share with others, and it's right in the project where your source code lives. So it's really promoting like the infrastructure as code, best practices that you can still do with like Jenkins files and pipeline as code,
Yep.
but just without like the plugin approach.
And I think like you said, it's also promoting the GitOps culture more and more, right? And to have compatibility with the new tools, so to speak, like Argo CD or whatever tools you have in the market, as they are more codified, you want them to be part of the Git. And now you don't want another tool to trigger that, because once you commit the code in Git, you just want to have it deployed. Why do you need another tool to have multiple breakpoints or failure points? And yeah.
Well, to add another like layer on top of that is 2023 right now. There's tremendous financial macroeconomic uncertainty. And so companies are really starting to scrutinize their tool budget. And so as well as how much time they're spending maintaining those tools. So they're
Right.
opting for more SaaS-based managed services. And they're also trying to consolidate where possible, as long as they're not sacrificing quality. And so that's the other piece of this is CI is no longer like this differentiator piece. A lot of times security is. And so, they'll bundle like GitHub Actions with GitHub and GitLab CI with their GitLab. And then, okay, maybe they'll still have a couple point security tools at first. And then more efficiency and cost cutting needs to happen. And so what do? They look into, okay, what kind of security stuff can we also get scanning wise? And are we able to enforce it, right? To make sure that if there is some kind of a log4j type vulnerability, that we have a really good understanding of which code repos are in compliance versus not. So it all comes back to the source code. And so that's why like you see our company, shifting left and adding more and more capabilities in the security space, tons of stuff in there right now.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And we have seen, right, in past, how much teams can misuse Jenkins. When you have one tool, some teams would use that as a monitoring tool, and which is not supposed to be used as, and then they would use for variety of purposes because it allows that, right? I mean, it's not Jenkins fault. It is just that the amount of flexibility it provides, people would use, and then ultimately we've seen it is tough to maintain that, and like you said, the cost of maintenance will increase. And as companies are, I think even enterprises are adopting the SaaS based approach. They would rather buy some, even for security, right? Because in few years back, Conley, we were very paranoid about going into SaaS at all. Now you must have seen the Sneak platform, the security tools that are SaaS based, or even we are putting our logs in the SaaS based platform. So I think that paranoia is gone, and people are looking at more cost benefits and I think other benefits that they might get through the SaaS platforms, right?
Yeah, it's much more flexible. Getting all of the SOC 2 type audits and being able to show that like on .com. These are like really big milestones for SaaS companies to hit. As well as like FedRAMP, which is great for like federal customers in the government and the U.S. government. These are so yeah. When you're certified in each of these, it does allow for much more confidence. For GitLab in particular, we're so security focused that it actually by using SaaS, like on any product, you're getting the latest releases. So as soon as there is a security vulnerability found, that's the first place it's going to be patched. And so, if you really look at it, it's, do I trust the SREs at a premier DevOps company, or do I trust the SREs that I can go and hire myself who may not have expertise in managing this tool? So,
Right.
It is a trade-off that companies, I think the more strategic companies, the ones that are more technically competent at reviewing this stuff, end up being able to take that perceived risk that used to be, a non-starter with SaaS platforms.
Yep. And when we spoke about the CI particularly, but now as companies are moving towards Kubernetes and other platforms, how does this, I mean, GitLab specifically help the whole GitOps process? I don't want that to be compared with GitHub Actions or anything, but from your perspective, maybe you can add, if you want to add any advantages over GitHub Actions. But in general, how does these actions or GitLab CI would help the whole GitOps?
Yeah, and by the way, I'm not, this is actually a really budding part of both our product as well as just the industry.
Right.
It's, GitOps, we started looking into it and experimenting it like when Kubernetes became really, really mainstream in 2018, 2019. And so it obviously takes competency within Kubernetes first and foremost. Getting in infrastructure as code, understanding how to deal with RBAC and getting controls put in place for standing up your clusters.
Yeah.
But if that box is sort of checked and you're starting to maybe run proof of concepts, like a lot of my customers are dabbling, right? They want to just understand what's the both security benefits, the speed at which the product can be released with more automation up front, as well as like the improved monitoring and even cost efficiencies by having your stateless services defined as code reflecting what's in production. So maybe GK, you can start us with just like definition of what GitOps is, and then I can add in the GitLab nuances.
Yeah, I think we have spoke at the start of the video. It's mostly, like you said, Conley, it is to do with how can you make the whole infrastructure as a code possible, right? For example, we started using CloudFormation in AWS. We have used Terraform. We're currently using Terraform. So the more industries moving towards, you don't want to have manual creation of the infrastructure, and you want to automate the whole thing using one code. And the source of, they want to have one single source of truth and have that in Git. And that makes it much easier, like you said, right? So that's the whole part of it. Like, for example, whenever you want to do a blue green or deploy a pod to Kubernetes, you would commit that into the Git, and then the Argo CD will take that, or your GitLab CI would trigger Argo CD to take that Docker image and then deploy that to the Kubernetes through Argo. So these things are happening because of the GitLab CI and GitHub Actions, and this is pretty much the whole GitOps is all about. Like, for example, whenever there is a drift in the infrastructure, you cannot make changes to the infrastructure directly. So that's the whole part of it, right? So you want to make changes only through Git, because then you will not drift away from your actual initial idea that you had for the infrastructure and create a lot of snowflakes. So whenever there is a drift, Argo CD will immediately roll back to the initial version that you wanted to create. So that's, I think, I really love how GitOps is currently shaping up the whole industry. What are your thoughts, Conley?
Yeah, like to build on that, some of the differences that going with like a GitLab for GitOps, we have what's called like our GitLab agent. This is something you would actually install on the cluster so that it could communicate back to your GitLab instance.
Okay.
And so what it does though is it allows for more security, because we have container scanning as well as dynamic container scanning. So it's one thing to kind of scan your manifest files, your Helm chart files for dependencies, or over provisioning of access through some like IAC infrastructure as code scanners. That's all the static stuff. So that's great. But then what if there is drift, like you're saying, and you need to make sure that what's in production in the cluster running reflects what was what you wrote in your project, and it didn't pick up anything during the CI deployment pipeline or any other dependencies. So that's why it's an added benefit to have an active container scan running, and you can do that with the GitLab agent, as well as like monitoring and having views into your cluster's activity and health through just the GitLab console, right? Instead of having to go through AWS or GCP or kind of scraping all this through a metric API. You're going to get some like good higher level, but some good immediate information just from GitLab itself. So I think that's like the differentiators, other than all the reasons you want to go with GitOps in the first place, is that security and the monitoring aspect that you get.
Okay, that's amazing. And this is a common question that I get from a lot of my subscribers, because they would love to learn tools in DevOps. I mean, that's the kick, especially for the DevOps engineers, right? Whenever there's a new tool, you would love to learn that. Or any tool that's a very good thing, going very well in the market. So GitHub Actions, people can learn it easily. It's free, right? And then, as you know, Azure DevOps is picking up very fast. You must have seen it's a good competitor, maybe possibly for you as well, because they also have the hosted and they provide a free version through GitHub Actions, and they pretty much look similar in the terms of writing your file, like the CI file or the CD file. But in the terms of learning GitLab CI, can they learn or can they create any sandbox environment to learn GitLab?
Yeah. So you can go to like GitLab.com, create an open source project, and you can submit it as an open source project and get our ultimate features. So that is very much a process that you can go through. I'm sure it's pretty easy. I haven't done it myself, but we support open source. We want to be the home for open source. And so we give all the security stuff, like that's called our ultimate tier. We only have 2 tiers, premium and ultimate. The rest is free tier. So there is a process for doing that, just to kind of learn and kind of get the hang of it. But even in the free tier, you're going to learn GitLab CI, and you're going to be able to use security scanners, and you're going to be able to use the issue board and stuff. So yeah, I think I would actually plug our GitOps tutorials. So we've got one for EKS as well as GKE. So we've got 2 different tutorials that are free. And so maybe I can give you those links, but those are 2 that are really good. It goes through a hands-on labs and workflows.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, Conley. So what I'll do is I'll put those links in the description, and for people who are watching this video can use those links and practice GitLab CI. Like I've said, there's no harm, or it only benefits your resume if you have one another good tool part of your resume in DevOps tools. Cool. That's good to know. In fact, honestly, I did not know till you told me that you can actually create an open source project and play around with GitLab CI. I was always thinking that you should have or buy license or something.
Yeah, I don't know about the minutes, like the runner minutes. So,
Yeah.
you could get the access if it's a qualified open source project.
Mhm.
But the runner infrastructure, I don't know about that part. You may actually need to set
Oh,
up your own runners so that those pipelines have some infrastructure to run on.
okay. So as long as you set up your own runners in a VM or somewhere, it's free, right? You can set, I think, yeah, everybody can use their GC VMs, free tier AWS VMs or something,
Right.
and then practice. Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah. There's definitely hacks around this, and so yeah, it's something to look into.
I mean, this is like a hypothetical question, but you know your trends much better than anybody else from the GitLab perspective. If people would spend their time learning the tool, do you think they'll have lots of opportunities and lots of companies are going to use GitLab versus GitHub Actions or Azure DevOps?
Yeah, so like I've been looking a lot into what's the difference. I mean, for one,
Mm-hmm.
they do similar things. It's really we pioneered this whole DevSecOps platform idea where you
Yeah.
have everything from planning all the way to building, testing, releasing, monitoring, protecting. So we have 10 stages of DevSecOps, and we've got like 10 different security scanners that support tons of languages. So
Mm.
when you drill into the details, you'll find that GitHub is at least a year and a half, 2 years behind
Okay.
where our security is, because we've gone really deep, like languages that are supported. We support frameworks, like pip, Python. They have Python, but they don't have pip. So like we
Mm.
have more frameworks than them. And so basically what you're doing is you're getting way more out of the box.
Yeah.
Now, it's not going to hurt you either way to learn both of these
Yep.
these DevSecOps platforms. To me, what I think is even more important is the cultural elements of DevOps, which is the whole idea of collapsing cycle time, understanding your customers by getting more feedback and releasing quicker so that you can get that feedback quicker.
Yeah.
Which in enterprises, it takes coordination and even restructuring organizations in the way you report and the way that you build your products versus projects that are short term, short funded, and then the team disperses and disbands after 6 to 12 months. So to me, when you're trying to get the biggest bang for your buck, and if you're someone who's like a DevOps engineer who's trying to level up either as like a staff IC, trying to go the individual contributor route, or you're trying to be a manager, senior manager, director, it's getting those concepts around
Right.
like how do I better manage a team of high performing engineers um, by having telemetry that's both like telling me and giving me indicators that we're doing the right thing, by prioritizing technical debt and making that a first class citizen along with feature and bug development. So these types of concepts, I would say reading books like Project to Product, um, reading the DevOps research and assessment reports, the state of DevOps reports that came out since like 2014, 2015. Those are the areas that I think start to set you apart other than just learning the tool.
No, that's very well said, Conley, because people will easily carry into the tools mindset and then forget the actual purpose of what tool is trying to do for their overarching bigger goal, to have this DevOps culture in their company. I think, yeah, very well put together. So the takeaways from this video, what I got, at least that I understood, is that basically focus on GitOps, understanding GitLab, at least learn GitLab CI. It's trending in a right direction. It's going to become the next big thing, probably. And we have seen the trends as well. Like Jenkins is slightly decreasing in the terms of usage or even people searching for it. And GitLab CI is increasing. That's based on my research. The jobs, I don't know, I have to search, but whatever I have seen, big enterprises are definitely adopting GitLab. And that's pretty much enough for people to start working on it and learning that. And then the GitOps and the other concepts. I think that's a wrap of this conversation, Conley. Thanks so much for sharing your thoughts around this whole GitOps and GitLab and everything. It was fun chatting with you.
Anytime, GK. You know, I'm always happy to chat with you, and I think we got some more ideas for future videos. So really looking forward to it.
Thanks, Conley.